Hello, everyone, and hi, Elaine. We are welcome to another episode of Beyond the Edge, our podcast dedicated to evolving landscape of international media and the relationship between PR and journalists. I'm Francesca, a PR specialist at Disclosers. Thanks for being here today. And in this episode, we'll explore your insights in the current state and future of global journalism. So let's get started with the very first question. Microbusinesses often operate with limited teams and budgets, yet many have stories worth telling on a global scale. From your experience, what's the smart way PR professional can help these small but ambitious companies gain visibility without overwhelming the resources?
Well, thank you so much for having me here, Francesca. I'm so happy to be here. I would say every business, no matter what size, has a great story. Just starting a business means overcoming a lot of resistance in society that tells us to become employees for the most part. So there's probably a story in every startup. That said, what I would say is where sometimes the pitches fall apart is they're not professional. When you're going to a business publication, it's a story about money and finance and financial success or failure. So you really need to come prepared with numbers. Even if the company has sold only, 5,000 widgets in the first year, it's a start, but you really need to persuade your client to share that kind of information, because when you're on the other side as a reporter, you're wondering, is this a real business? Is this an idea in someone's head? Do they have any customers? What evidence of traction is there? And I think this is where often the publicists give good advice to the clients, but the clients don't listen, and they say, well, I'm going to go on the interview and I don't want to talk about that. Well, then you're wasting the reporter's time, and you're also damaging the relationship between the publicist and the reporter. So what I would advise publicists to do is be fairly aggressive about that and not pitch the national media or international media until your client is willing to tell a story that has to do with the numbers. And that might mean not taking on a client too early. It also might mean redirecting them to, for instance, the consumer or trade market. So if they have a great innovation, maybe it's like a new hair care product or something like that, you could try to pitch Oprah's favorite things, build some traction, build some sales, and then go to the business media, because I'm part of the business media. So that's a way, if the person really feels like their numbers are too small, help them get some sales with their publicity and then go back to the business press.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With the growing use of AI in PR, from automated pitches to chatbot-driven follow-ups, have you noticed a shift in how outreach feels? And does it make harder or easier to find real compelling stories?
I think that there are tools that people are using that will identify you based on one story that you've written or edited and paint it with a very broad brush. So, for instance, if I wrote a story about beach umbrellas, I'll start to get a whole bunch of pitches about beach umbrellas, but I don't cover beach umbrellas, and I probably won't cover that again for another year. I cover entrepreneurship and the entrepreneur made beach umbrellas. So make sure that you're really reading what the AI is telling you. I don't think it's a bad idea to use it to try to identify people who might be a good fit as reporters, but also use some context to select where you're sending pitches, because otherwise it just disappears into somebody's inbox.
Okay. Yes, we need to really evolve also with with AI. We need to understand really how to use it. So, as the lines blur between journalism and content marketing, how do you maintain editorial independence while working with sources introduced via PR?
One thing that's very interesting is that content marketing has become so sophisticated. I think as the traditional media has failed, we're seeing a lot of journalism now taking place as brand journalism. And what the publications have realized is nobody wants to read the old school advertorials where the client is the star of the story and no other context exists and it's all just one big love fest. No one wants to read that, and they know that. They want things to be read. They want to go back to the client and show that there are metrics showing that it was read. So what I found is increasingly, I do a lot of content marketing. You can do it exactly as you would do journalism and provide statistical evidence of a trend, do real quotes from the source, and use all the things that you learned in journalism. So I would say, because so many publications are struggling, a lot of journalists are now doing content marketing, and you can pitch journalistic stories to them. And I think find some very good outlets that are comparable to publications.
Okay, thank you. And in your opinion, what do small companies like startups need to stand out to be featured in a major media outlet like Forbes? What sets that apart?
I would say preparation is very important. So before you even pitch them, you should have a good quality headshot. If you have a team, a good team photo. If you have an interesting business, photos of the location. You know, for instance, a very cool warehouse that is state of the art or something like that. You should have a bio written, an accurate, fact-checked bio. If you're pitching a book, you should have a press kit for the book. So that would mean the media can actually look at a link to the book, or you could send a PDF of it, even if it's in Galley. You want to have a press release about the book, putting it in context, written by your publicist. And you should have all of this ready to attach to an email and send the same day. Where I see smaller clients not getting the publicity that they deserve is they're too slow, and they don't see what the publicists see, which is the tremendous amount of competition to get into these outlets. So when the reporter asks, do you have a case study of a client who's used your methodology, you should be able to get back to them with a client that day who has pre-agreed to respond to any media requests the same day, not tomorrow, today, because the journalists are spread very thin and they don't have time to wait. They have to file the story. And I think that's where you'll have a publicist who does everything right and the client sabotages them through lack of speed. And I think it's really important for the publicist to put their foot down and say, I'm not going to pitch Fast Company, Forbes, the New York Times, any of those publications until we have this all lined up. And I think it's on the publicist to reach out to any case studies that you need, because they don't usually want to do a single source story. So in what I do usually, you know, for instance, if you're representing a business coach, you'd want to, as the reporter, speak to people who use the coaching methodology and are enthusiastic and can show that it helped them and actually know how it helped them. So you would have to prearrange that, but that's work that the publicist can do. The source themselves doesn't have to do it. If you take 3 weeks to get back to them, they've moved on. They're on to the next story, and yes, they may not have time. So that's the challenge of being a publicist, because some people are coachable and some people are not. And and that's part of having successful relationships is really on the front end, is assessing that, maybe doing some small tests to see if the client actually listens to something small that you ask for, because they will be disappointed later if you keep asking them for things and then they just want to do things their way and aren't sensitive to what the media needs. Yes. And I think that's the most frustrating thing for publicists, is they're doing everything right and the client just doesn't understand the media but doesn't trust them to understand it. So I would say don't even take the clients. If you think they're not coachable early on, they're not going to become more coachable. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and one of their strengths is in a way that they aren't coachable. They're terrible employees because they do things their own way. But some of them are really good lifelong learners, and some of them are not. They think that everything is easy and their way is always the best way. And
they're the leader. Everyone is the leader on the market.
Yeah, and so when you're pitching the media has a responsibility to their audience, right? To have interesting stories that have the relevant information that the audience expects. So if you're not giving them what they need to do their job, then they will not do it. They'll just work with someone else who's willing to do it. So I think it's very hard to be very firm with clients because they're paying your rent and for your groceries. But it's better to not have them as clients if they're uncoachable, because you will never get any media placements.
I totally agree. Totally agree with you. And so here we come with the last question. Could you share with us one key do and one don't that PR professionals should always keep in mind before reaching out to a journalist?
Sure. Well, I would say don't take it personally if you don't hear back, because if you could see my inbox or any other journalist, I have a special inbox just for pitches. It has maybe 200 to 300 pitches a day that I cannot possibly open. What I would say to do is try to meet me somewhere else, at an online event, at an in-person event, somewhere where we can build a relationship, because there is trust once you have a relationship, and there can be some brainstorming. Like if you have a client you're trying to place, they're not a good fit for Forbes. If I know you, maybe I'll talk to you about other things I'm working on. Well, I'm doing something for a trade publication that would be perfect for it. Not as glamorous as Forbes, but maybe this would be a good audience for a client who's looking to win new customers. And that's also important, is to think about the client's goals with the publicity. Not everybody wants to be famous. Some of them are just looking to get new customers. So yes, they may want you to pitch Fortune or Forbes or Fast Company, but that might not be where the clients live. So if that's their goal, you want to think about what publications do their clients read and go from there. If it's thought leadership, then it might be that you want to be an HBR and you want to do a commentary for them, or the Wall Street Journal. It's really getting clear on what the client's version of good looks like, and then keeping them focused on that and not getting distracted by the desire for fame and attention, which might not really serve their bigger goals.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. That's really interesting. And yes, again, I totally agree with you. This is a challenge also in our work from our side. So we are learning every day, especially with international media, that the approach is quite different from the Italian media. So it's really interesting to have also these points of view. And thank you very much for staying with us and staying at Beyond the Edge. So see you in the next episode. Thank you, Elaine.
Oh, thank you so much, Francesca.
Thank you. Bye.